Cheers, and that gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight, Duane.
Cheers, Pete.
Thank you, Pete. Hello, everyone. My name's Duane. I'm a recovered relapser.
Duane.
And so I'm going to share my experience, strength, and hopelessness. And I was truly hopeless when I got here, and I'm still hopeless today. I take no credit for the fact that I haven't relapsed since August the 9th, 2016. That wasn't me that changed something on that day. I tried many times for a lot of years to stop relapsing, and never managed it. So what happened that day, I can't really explain, but the power that I was seeking, that I'd been told about, which could relieve me from relapsing, came to me that day, and since that day I haven't relapsed. And so I'm going to use the book for those of you that are new. Use the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and in it contains what we suffer with, the illness that I suffer with, the solution to relieve me from that illness. And so I'm going to share some bits out of it, and bits that are really relevant, all the way through this book, and especially the first 44 pages. There's many descriptions of relapse. It's relapse. Page 5 there's a relapse, page 6 there's a relapse, page 7 there's a relapse. Into there is a solution, there's relapses, more about alcoholism, there's many relapses. And on page 34, page 35, he said, so we shall describe some of the mental states which precedes a relapse into drinking, for obviously this is the crux of the problem, and that was certainly the crux of my problem. I could not stop myself from starting to drink or sniff or blaze a pipe. And what is it to be an addict or an alcoholic? Describes it on page 24. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and the humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defence against the first drink. For me, that's what it means to be an addict. I am without defence against the first drink. So I need a defence. And where does that defence come from? And the book tells me it comes from a power greater than me. And going back, at 23, I had my first child, and up until then, my drinking was what I would class as fun. Do you know what I mean? Although the people that I used to drink with probably wouldn't have classed it as fun. Do you know what I mean? It's I'm absolute chaos when I drink and use, and I never know what's going to happen. When I drink and use, who knows? And at 23, my partner at the time has a daughter. We have a daughter, and this is the first time I actually understand that I'm powerless and I've got no defence, because I say to myself, I'm not going to drink anymore, because every time I drink, I use cocaine, I sit on the pipe for 4 days, I spend every penny that I've got, and basically 2 days later, from my daughter coming out of hospital, I've relapsed. I made a firm resolution on that day, I'm never going to do this again. And 2 days later, I'm out wetting the baby's head, like a party animal. And that was kind of really my first experience of properly swearing off, as it talks about in the book, the firm resolution never to do it again. And the rest of the next 10 years is categorised by countless vain attempts to prove myself exception to the rule, therefore not alcoholic. And at this time I did not know what I suffered with. I was just I was just this guy, you know, bumbling through life, you know, trying to do my best and thinking I was doing pretty well at it, and just relapsing every weekend. And then every Monday I'll be like, well, I'm not doing that again. I'll be begging my missus, please don't take the kids away, and you know, begging my boss, you know, on a Monday when I've not turned up, please just give me one more chance. And yeah, by the Thursday or the Friday, I'm without thought of consequences, as the book describes it, you know, in quite a few different ways. Peculiar, strange, you know, what happens in my mind before I pick up. I can't explain it, but the memory of what I did 2 days ago certainly don't enter into my head, and when it does enter into my head, it's quickly supplanted with the old threadbare idea that I'm going to do it different this time. Mental, do you know what I mean? It's only, you know, the book describes it as pure insanity, and you know, when I look back now in hindsight, you know, when I turn around and look at, you know, the last 10 years of my using, there is no other explanation than I am insane around going and drink and use, you know. And you know, as a part of the book, you know, so page 20, 21, you know, I'm a real alcoholic. I know I am. You know, my past experience tells me that I'm the real deal. But page 20, it talks about moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving up liquor entirely if they have good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years before his time. If sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, or the warning of a doctor becomes operative, this man can also stop or moderate, although he may find it difficult and troublesome, and may even need medical attention. But what about the real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker. But at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. Here is the fellow who has been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does absurd, incredibly tragic things while drinking. He is a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He is seldom mildly intoxicated. He is always more or less insanely drunk. His disposition while drinking resembles his normal nature by little. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world, yet let him drink for a day and he frequently becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. He has a positive genius for getting tight at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when some important decision must be made or engagement kept. And that bit there, you know, that last little paragraph, you know, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and maybe one of the finest fellows in the world. I've described myself as that, you know. Whether others agree, I don't know. But do you know what? When I don't relapse, I'm all right. Do you know what I mean? I like to think I'm a pretty kind, considerate, well-mannered, level-headed human being. When I drink, that guy, he just ain't there. Do you know what I mean? And when it talks about he has a positive genius for getting tight at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when important decision or engagement must be kept, and that there always takes me back, that part of the book, to 2015, my wedding day. You know, just got married to a woman that I wanted to believe at that time I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, and gets to 12 o'clock at night and my wedding day's been an absolute blast. My family are all happy, my wife's happy, I'm happy. The twist happens. My mind turns in on itself, and the idea that going and have a pipe is going to make this day even better than what it's already been. And so I take the pot with all the cards that all my family and friends have all put money in. I take that, and I say, I'm just going to go and put this in the honeymoon suite. I'll be back in a bit. And I take that to the honeymoon suite and I start opening the cards. And I start taking the money out of these cards, and I'm in my wedding suit. I'm like, yeah. You know, my mind my insane thinking's returned in that moment, and my new wife walks in, and she knows, because I've been with this woman for 3 years, and I've done this exact same thing. This twist has happened, and I can't think straight. The only thing I can think of is I've got to go and use, and so she's saying, please don't. The love of that woman, you know, and I couldn't stay. Had to go and use, and I stepped over her on that day, you know, while she laid out on the honeymoon suite floor in her wedding dress, and I stepped over her and went and sat in a crack house for 7 hours on my wedding night, you know, thinking I was the boss, having a good old blast, spending everybody's money, which should have been for, you know, bigger, better things. And remember a guy coming in that I've known into this crack house, and he seen me on my wedding suit, and he went, I'll give it a year. And that marriage lasted 5 months before she went, fucking, I can't do this, you know, continual relapses again and again. And yeah, you know, that's just one relapse. You know, there's many, many relapses, and if I fast forward, you know, the relapses became closer and closer together. You know, the sprees became longer and longer, and you know, got to the summer of 2016, and I lost the job that I had. You know, I was physically unable to go and get another one. You know, I was so broken physically and mentally, spiritually. My children were removed from me. Pretty much everything that I held worthwhile in my life had been stripped from me by this illness and my behaviour, and as consequences of my using. And you know, when I say that day on August the 9th, something happened to me on that day that I can't really explain, and you know, I'll put it into words as best as I can, but I had an out-of-body experience, and you know, I know it now that I had a spiritual experience, and it was, you know, God entered my life that day, and I was sitting in my flat that I turned into a crack house, and I couldn't even get anybody to come and smoke crack with me by this time, because I weren't earning any money. Everybody was just like, you're a weirdo, you're a loner, and I was just alone, and I'd hugged this crack pipe for like 2 days, because I thought somebody that weren't there was going to scrape it, you know, and smoke what was in there, and I said the simplest prayer that I know, you know, please help me. That was it. And in that moment, I had this moment of clarity, you know, and a power entered me in that day. I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, you know, power entered me that day, because since that day, relapse hasn't been my problem anymore. You know, I have a defence. You know, I continue to have a defence, and yeah, in that moment, I had a moment of clear thinking, and that clear thinking said, reach out, you know, and I did. I reached out. You know, I was involved in CA by that time. I've been sitting in these meetings for 2.5 years, hearing you guys talk about a solution. You know, still believing that I can do it my way, that I'm going to be able to control, and using strategies. You know, I'm not going to go to there. You know, if I hang around with that person, you know, if I drink beer or change my drink or change my job or move to a different place, all strategies to stop me from using, and them strategies did not work. You know, they may have worked for a period of time. You know, if I had one weekend off the pipe or off the beer or off the sniff, my mind would twist the following weekend and I'd be gone. You know, I could never get more than 10 days through these strategies that I employed. And yeah, I reached out on that day, and 2 guys come. You know, God works through people. You know, and God turned up at my door within an hour of me making this call, this cry for help, and 2 men took me out of the situation that I was in, and my life just, since that day, my life just got better. You know, it just got better. And I'm not saying, you know, for me, it might not be your experience. I'm not, you know, if this ain't your experience, but when I start relapsing, things are all right. Do you know what I mean? And I look back now and think, when I came here, I had loads of problems, and I thought it was all your fault. I thought it was everybody else and not me, you know. But when I stopped relapsing, fucking everything sorted itself out. Do you know what I mean? And So yeah, I stopped relapsing on that day, and things started happening. You know, I ended up in the 12-step treatment centre, and they told me what was wrong with me, which you guys were probably telling me what was wrong with me while I was sitting in these meetings, but I weren't hearing it. You know, and some men told me about the illness that I suffer with. You know, the insanity of that first one, and what happens in my mind before I pick up, and they suggested that I do some things, and I started to do them things with real fucking enthusiasm, because I wanted nothing more than to be the dad that my kids deserved. Do you know what I mean? By that time, I hadn't seen my kids for 4 months because they'd been removed from me, but you know, I knew because I witnessed all you guys in here getting well. But that weren't my story. So when I got to treatment, it was like, I'm gonna do everything what these guys are telling me, and I did. You know, and I started to go through the steps and sit and start doing some stuff I'd never done before, like getting honest. Fucking hate being honest. It's fucking shit. But you know, today is probably the most important thing that I do. You know, getting honest and getting accountable, and yeah, and so yeah, I went through a process in treatment of doing a lot of meetings. You know, the meetings don't keep me clean, but while I was in treatment, I was in them. You know what I mean? I was in there listening. You know, and I was in there trying to help the next man. You know, the newcomer that walked through the door, and you know, I went through that process, and I got out, and my sponsor the last month of treatment came in with this book, and lovingly went through the book with me, and I walked out of that treatment centre having completed the 12 steps, you know, with a connection to a God that has continued to exist up to this day. And you know, I walked out of the treatment centre, and I got in these meetings, and I started just trying to help people, probably a bit too much at times, like, come on, you're going to die, come with me. The old militant and that. You know, I've kind of softened a bit now, and yeah, it's you know, conscious contact with my higher power, you know, that I choose to call God, because that's its name, the most important thing. You know, it's the only thing that stops me from picking up. You know, I can do numerous other things. You know, I can do gratitude lists, and you know, I can hit loads of meetings, and you know, yeah, it's all part of the process. But you know, without a conscious contact with God and my understanding, it gives me a defence against the first one. I'm gone. Do you know what I mean? My experience tells me that, and you know, I get to witness miracles when I sit here. You know, I do see some miracles around. You know, I've been blessed to pick some guys up when they've been on the floor. Do you know what I mean? And carry the message. You know, the message of the book, the message in this book. There's only one, a spiritual experience, and that's it. You know, that's what I try and do, carry the message of the spiritual experience to the addict that still suffers, and sometimes I don't want it. You know, that's cool. Don't want it right now, that's fine. Do you know what I mean? My number don't change. You know, I'll be here waiting when you're good and ready. And you know, through doing this stuff as well, you know, that family that I'd abused for a number of years, and you know, I'd stole off and manipulate, you know, all the stuff that we do when we use, and we're in that madness. You know, my two little girls, probably the two people most affected by my relapses, and you know, today they've, you know, I made amends to them two little girls. You know, they were 9 and 11 at the time, and I made amends to them, and I said, what is it I can do for you girls to put it right? And my eldest, she sat there, and she was thinking, you could see the cogs whirling in her head, and she went, you know what, Dad, just continue doing what you're doing, you know, so that more men get well just like you have. And that was a beautiful thing, you know. It got me, and through that I continue to do what I'm doing. And about 4 weeks ago, I was at my house. You know, they've recovered. They're part of the 12-step fellowship now. You know, and about 3 weeks ago at my house and cuddling my eldest. Well, she's 12 now, so she's getting a bit big, but we still have a little cuddle. And she said, "Thanks, Dad." I went, "Well, thanks for what?" She went, "For keeping your promise of helping as many people as you can." And it's like, well, that's what this stuff does. Do you know what I mean? It's what this stuff does. It's you know, she also, that 12-year-old, she also turned around to me the other day and said, "Dad, I'm thinking about starting a meeting in school." And I said, "Why is that?" And she said, "Because I've got a friend in my class whose dad drinks." And she said, "There's a lot of classes in my school. So I've got one friend in one class. There must be a lot of kids in my school where their dads or mums might drink." You know, that's her outlook on life through me doing this stuff. You know, and yeah, what's the message? You know, the message is spiritual experience as outlined in the big book. If you suffer with the illness that I suffer with, you know, relieved me from that, and has relieved many millions of people worldwide. And you know, when I stop relapsing, my experience is my life gets good. You know, and even when life ain't good, because life hits sometimes, it's still all right. You know, my first thought, I'm going to go and stick one in me, don't even come to mind now. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you got something from that anyway. God bless you all.
Cheers.